Going. Hey everyone, this is the Live Magic Q&A with me, Madame Pamita, and my very, very special guest this week is Mat Auryn. You're going to find out about him in a second. Let me tell you what we're doing. This is the clubhouse of the Spell Squad. This is where the Spell Squad gets together and we talk about magic and divination and spiritualism and tarot and spirit guides and all kinds of other things, spell work, witchcraft, all that good stuff. This is where we meet once a week. This is the clubhouse. I love having you guys here. And if you are seeing a recording of this on YouTube or some other place, let me explain what we're doing here. We meet every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Mountain time, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. And we meet as a live Zoom meeting. So if you are watching a recording of this, and if you want to ask a question and get your question answered by me and my fabulous guests that we have, it's an easy way to do it. You go to spellsquad.com. So spellsquad.com will take you over to my site where you can sign up. Once you sign up, you get a link that will let you into the clubhouse. Oh, it's so secret and magical. It's like having saying open sesame, and then the bookcase opens and reveals an amazing treasure trove of magical knowledge for you. So this week, we're going to have our very, very special guest that we're going to have. It is happening right now. Our very special guest is Mat Auryn. Mat is an amazing, he's my boo. He's my baby. He's not a baby witch, but he is my baby. And we have known each other for a while now, and he is an amazing magical practitioner. I just went to one of his workshops over the summer. He did this amazing workshop over at what I call Witch Camp, but what's the official name of it? I don't even remember, Mat. What's the official
Temple Fest.
Temple Fest, that's right. Temple Fest that takes place it's a Christopher Penzak's Witch Camp. And we were there together. We actually camped out together. Anyway, Mat did an amazing workshop on using psychic abilities and how to develop your psychic abilities and how to use them in witchcraft. And he has an amazing book coming out, which I was lucky enough to get a sneak peek at, and it's called Psychic Witch. So, Mat, I'm going to put you in the spotlight. Mat, here he is. Ta-da! Mat Auryn. Hey. Mat is an amazing magical practitioner. He's on the East Coast. I always think of you as a Salem witch, and you do readings in Salem once in a while, but you're just an East Coast witch. You're one of those East Coast witches. So do you have a copy of that book to show everyone? Because it's not out yet, but you can pre-order it, right? That people can pre-order.
Yeah. And if you pre-order on Amazon, I think they guarantee the cheapest price.
Look at that gorgeous book. Oh my God.
In the frame. This is just the review copy, but yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
It's my baby.
It's such a beautiful book. So I'm going to tell them a little bit about it, and then you're going to fill in a little bit more. So this book is about doing witchcraft. I say it's like look ma no hands. That's what I gave a little review of it because I just thought I got a beautiful opportunity to see this book before it was getting ready to be published, and I fell in love with it because it really gets to, I think it takes this is that kind of book that can take anyone from a person who has no sense of their intuition or how to work magically or how to open up their intuition, all the way up to experienced practitioners who are wanting to develop those skills and really maximize those skills and make them even stronger. So I love it because wherever you are on that spectrum, you can pop in and you can gain something. And even I have to say, as a person who has been doing magical work, spiritual work, psychic work for a really long time, I even found those basic introductory things were very grounding and very like, oh yeah, that's it, like enhanced even those basic practices enhance your work, even if you've been doing it forever. Did you plan to have it be that way when you were making it, that it could be for everybody, like that would, wherever they were?
Yeah. So I kept a couple things in mind when writing the book. So first I thought about what it was like to be a beginner. And I haven't been a beginner in a very, very long time. But I kept that in mind. And then I also kept in mind, because I left witchcraft for a couple years and started seeking out other systems, other spiritualities, and then came back to witchcraft. So I was also thinking about, well, what attracted me to witchcraft? Again, what excited me? What was the depth in it? So I kind of wanted to kind of combine those, because I find continual depth in the basics that a lot of people kind of rush through, or they see as just kind of um, like simple, something that they've mastered just to get to the next level and to do the thing. But really, if you look at it as a foundation, you want that strong foundation. You want to keep revisiting those basics and diving deeper and deeper into them.
Yeah, I really feel like it's kind of like, if you go around that circle, we talk about like that circle. I mean, in tarot, we always talk about the, cycle of the major arcana and how you come back to the Fool card all the time, which is the beginning again. But it's like a spiral that you have some depth to that. So even if you go back to those very beginner sort of exercises with some experience under your belt, it's not like, oh, I'm going back to something that I already know. You're going to get some dimension to it that you may not have had when you were really just starting, right? I think that's my opinion.
Absolutely. And tarot's a perfect example, even though, this book isn't divination based. I mean, I've been reading tarot for a very, very long time, and it's a lifelong study. And it is just like you said, after the world, after completion and all of that, you start back at the beginning, and then you have like a new level for that journey of learning and understanding and integrating.
It's so, so good. I love that. Um, if you were to like say, I'm sure I didn't even ask you about this, but like if you were to say to somebody, what is one thing that they could do magically from a witchcraft perspective that's kind of an essential to open up their psychic abilities, to open up their clairvoyance, their clairaudience, their clairsentience? Is there kind of a one thing that they could do? Or is that a weird question to ask? I don't know.
Well,
Putting you on the spot.
I think that's a difficult question. And that was one of the roadblocks I had when writing the book, because, there's so many elements and practices that revolve around it. And then it was like, well, how do I make it linear? Because it does kind of swing back to this part, then back to that part, so making it linear was really difficult. If there were two things that I really want to emphasize to the everyday person, to help them kind of open that psychic and that magical ability, one is the practice of meditation. And I know a lot of people are very resistant to it, and for good reason, which I try to tackle and try to make it a little bit easier and more exciting. And the second is just imagination. We have totally alienated ourselves from imagination in the post-industrial world. We're all about like rational thinking and things of that nature, but psychic ability occurs on the alpha brainwave level, and that is the exact state that imagination is. So when you're off daydreaming, when you're really engrossed in a book and you start seeing those images. So one of the things that I get asked a lot in workshops and from my students and stuff is, how do I know that I'm not just imagining this, right? Like, how do I know that it's not just my imagination and it's not, it's nothing psychic? And my answer is always, if you're just imagining it, you're on the right track. It doesn't mean that, like it's correct, but you're opening those faculties, you're getting them running. And it takes practice, and with practice and experience comes discernment. And you start to recognize what is coming from you and what is not coming from you, which is where meditation becomes so beneficial, again, because you start understanding how you think. So
Yeah.
so when it's you, and when you know when it's like, I have no idea why I'm seeing, a purple poodle named Margaret, you know?
I want a purple poodle named Margaret now. You just planted an idea in my head. I think one of the things when I talk to clients about how to develop their intuition or how to develop their abilities, I think the thing I have found to be super helpful when they're feeling that hesitation is to say, I have found to quiet that voice, I say, let's just pretend that this is, and let's just play that this is true so that it doesn't shut down that voice that's coming through. Because I find that when you have that voice that's coming through and then that rational mind pops in, the rational mind will say, this, you're just making this up. It happens universally when you're just learning to develop. I think that you're absolutely right that that is a universal. And I say, okay, when you are going to hear this voice, you are going to get that message from your rational mind. But the way to kind of put the rational mind aside is to say, okay, well, let me just pretend that this is real, because it satisfies the rational mind that you're not fully invested in it, but it doesn't shut the doors on it. So it lets it flow. And then if you get that flow happening enough, you'll strengthen it. That's what I've found personally, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And something I do in my workshops, which always astonishes everyone, and it seems so silly when you do it first, and it's one of the first exercises in my book, is just to role play, to just make believe. So I usually partner people with each other. And, you know, I'm like, just imagine that you are, you know, the most psychic person on earth. Everything that you get is true. So the key to it is you're not looking to be correct. You know, so this isn't like there's no pressure of getting things right. You're just pretending. It's just an exercise of play. And people begin to amaze themselves, because at the end, you know, I'm like, tell me about the reading you just received. And everyone was like, it was spot on, you know, because you're just getting out of your own way by not putting on that pressure of it being accurate, of it being right. You know, as a professional psychic, one of the things that I quickly learned, the things that you're hesitant to say, the things that are like scary and you're like, there's no fucking way. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know the rating of the show. We're
not on the FCC's list, okay. So it's fine. I think everybody's adult in this room, so it's fine.
Yeah, so it's the things that, you know, people, or that I'm like, you know, there's no way this could be a thing. You know, I've learned to just say it, because that ends up being that validating, important thing for them. And more often than not, I mean, I think the few times where someone was like, no, da, 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 and I was like, you know, just put it in your pocket, you know, hold on to it, because that's what I'm receiving. You know, and
then they come back to you a week later or a month later and go, holy crap, you were right. I didn't think I was going to get pregnant, and I'm pregnant. What? You are too good, Mat Auryn.
Exactly. And those end up being a large chunk of my clientele. I had a woman come in once that was very concerned about her son. And I normally don't do readings that are about other people, especially if they're adults, because for me, it gets into like the spying area. But I checked in with my spirits and they were like, no, do this reading, do this reading. So as I'm doing the reading, I'm getting really, really tired. And my arm is getting really, really sore right here, right? And I'm looking at the tarot cards and I'm seeing all these needles, right? And the cards are talking about addiction, like it's got the devil and it's got all this like bondage. And so I'm like, you know, I think, you know, your son may be doing substances. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, I think, you know, like, he's using needles, and I'm guessing it's heroin because I'm getting really tired. She was like, no, there's absolutely no way. He hates needles, you know? And I'm like, okay, well, like maybe it means something else. But that's just what I'm picking. Just, you know, put it in your pocket. A year later, she came back to me and she's like, I went home that night. I went into his room. I found the needles. We put him into rehab, you know, and now she's like a repeat client. But it's one of those, you know, that's why we're the readers. That's, you know, we're telling you stuff that you can't see or you aren't looking at from your angle.
Yeah. I think that's like, I mean, that's like the next level kind of psychic step, I think, which is to be able to trust it, even if the evidence that you're getting from the person that you're reading for is telling you no, and to sort of just let it go. Well, you just kind of go, well, like you said, put it in your pocket. Maybe it means something else. You might get a sense of what it means, you know, as time goes on. And you don't have to get stressed out or feel like, oh, I'm bad or I'm not good because I wasn't accurate. You'll find out that if you start trusting that voice inside of you, that information that you're channeling, that you're going to be right and more right on than you know. That's what I think. All right. Do you want to get to some questions? Are you ready to answer some questions about magic? Let's see what people have to say. We got some people saying hi, Ren and Katie and Honoreo and Amanda, and now yours iPhone saying hi. Chanel has a question. Hey, I have a question for you, Matt. Have you ever done a honey jar? Have you ever done honey jar? Do you know about honey jar work?
I do honey jar work all the time.
Oh, okay. Then this is a good question that you can take. Chanel wants to know, can I do a honey jar to make two people get along platonically? What's your take on that?
I mean, yes. I mean, I think you could do a honey jar for anything, technically. But that gets into my ethics of like, should you be doing that? Should you not be doing that? And that's kind of a personal, answer for everyone. I think you're more of the honey jar type person, Pamita. So.
I have no problem with coercive magic. However, which is fascinating. So we're looking, when we talk about coercive magic, which is what Matt is like going like, yeah, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
Coercive magic is putting your will above someone else's will. I want these people to get along is your will versus the people's will. But guess I have a much more laissez-faire attitude about coercive magic. If you want to do coercive magic, have at it. Now, in some situations, doing coercive magic may not bring the best result. In my last week's episode, last week's get together that we had here, we were talking about that, and I was telling a story of how I once did a long time ago, did a sex magic attraction, hardcore attraction, sexy time spell on someone, and the dude wouldn't leave me alone when I wanted to break up with him. It was horrible. So your magic can sometimes work too good. So if I look at like the essence of your question, can you do a honey jar to make two people get along platonically? Absolutely. We do honey jar work to sweeten a person or situation. You can do a honey jar on a judge if you're going to court so that the judge favors you, right? You can do a honey jar on a boss, on a teacher, on whoever, not for romantic, but to get them to feel more kinder to you, to be sweeter to you. Now, can you work on two people getting along platonically? Sure. You want your kids to get along? I don't have a huge problem with doing something like that. It's like you want people to get along. If you're going to live with them and your kids are arguing with each other, do a honey jar on your kids so they get along. You know, you would do other things to get your kids to get along. Bribe them. I mean, I'm not. My ethical standards are very flexible. So that's how I feel about it. But yes, you can. The short answer is yes. You could do a honey jar spell platonically, completely platonically, and I would say that's probably secondary to the love work, as we see people with families where there are arguments or there's situations where they want someone to stop arguing, and it's just a family situation. So, yeah. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah. So my hesitation isn't so much about like it blowing up into a mess or like some kind of like threefold law or anything like that. I think it depends on who the targets are and what the situation is. For me, things are never super clear cut. And it depends on like to the degree that you want them to get along or what your goal is. Because for me personally, and I have no problem with anyone who does it differently, but I tend to try not to override people's will if I respect them. And that being said, there's a lot of people that I don't, respect. You know, so it just kind of, it depends. So like I would probably go so if it was say like children or family, I would probably do something more like a tuberosa, just to kind of sweeten the environment and make that a little bit more loving and, friendly, as opposed to trying to target someone else. But it's really, that's why witchcraft or magic is so unique and personal. And I don't think there is really a right or wrong, just like anything else in life. It's kind of a personal thing.
And it may be like a case by case basis. That's what it sounds like for you. It's like you have to look at a case. So just looking at a broad case of like, can you do it? But the reality is that we can do honey jars for platonic work. We don't have to do it for romantic work. So I think that answers that question.
Oh yeah.
We have another honey jar question from Ren. She asked about using small candles for honey jar spells. This is my pet peeve. I've got lots of pet peeves in candle magic because I got my way. And one of the things that in honey jar work, I guess you can do it any way you want. But the point of honey jar work is that you're doing why do we do big candles versus small candles? When you do let's say a big 7 knob candle and you're doing 1 knob each day, it's like you're doing 7 individual candles each day versus just burning the whole candle all the way down, right? And the same thing with burning small candles. When you burn a small candle each day, there is a different energy than of burning 7 little candles versus burning 1 big candle over 7 days. It's like you rededicate, you restart, you refocus each time you burn that candle. So sometimes I see people burning these ginormous, big ass candles on a honey jar. And I'm like, it's kind of missing the point of the honey jar, which is that you're working on it each day or each 3 times a week or whatever you're doing. So the question is, Ren wants to know, last week you mentioned using small candles for honey jar spells. I have a few career honey jar spells that I have going, and I know I'm in it for the long haul. Is it okay if I'm using a pillar candle in that I know it's going to be a long ongoing spell, trying to save money and not be wasteful? It's like it's fine. I'm not going to say don't do it. I mean, any candle in any port in a storm, right? But my opinion is that burning a little candle each day or each time you do it has that focusing effect. Do you have anything you want to say about that, Matt, that you have?
I mean, I completely agree. I don't use massive candles on honey jar. I tend to use like chime candles, that I'll anoint and dress and all of that. And then, just focus it and then done. And then come back to it with another one. Because chimes, for me, chime candles are inexpensive. And they're something that I can get a lot of because I know that the work that I do with it is going to be continual. It's going to be something that I'm going to want to be working on actively. I think you would kind of have a mess with big pillar candles anyways, unless you have like a honey pot or something.
Winnie the Pooh style, right?
Right. That's a lot of wax.
Yeah, I think also too, here's the thing. Here's a helpful hint from Madame Pamita. Now, I saw these very exquisite, very lovely beeswax candles, and I do feel like they are like the highest quality and the best. But you don't have to use, and they're like 50 cents a piece for a chime candle. So it's a little pricier than a regular chime candle. But right now, guess what's going on? Hanukkah, people. In the grocery store, you can buy a 50-pack of Hanukkah candles for $1. I mean, you can go to the dollar store and get the Hanukkah candles. There are a ton of, if cost is your concern, there are a ton of amazing, inexpensive opportunities for you to buy candles right now that you can use later. So whether they're the candles that they use for I think they call them like emergency candles, which are a little bit bigger, usually around 5-6 inches, or you get the Hanukkah candles, which are 4 or 5 inches. And if you want to get cute ones, I've seen super cute Hanukkah candles in Target right now. So you got a lot to work with that could be not very expensive. You don't have, I mean, if you can afford to get the Cadillac, you get the Cadillac. But if what you can get is a used Subaru, I don't know, Subarus are expensive, a used Kia. If that's what you can afford, get the used Kia, you know? And if you don't have the budget to go get the fancy beeswax special witch made candle, then get the paraffin candle. I'm not saying don't do magic or don't do candle magic unless you can afford the best. But I think that act of doing the candle one after the other has there's something about that ritual. There's something about that rhythm that's very particular to a honey jar versus burning a big candle. Because remember, I think there's something that we forget is that the candle burning completely is you sending off your spell. So if you get the big candle that you're burning on top, you're really not going to get to sending off that spell till that candle is burned. And you may even be delaying your work, in my opinion. Any comment about that?
I mean, I agree with all of that. I also, something that I do is I have done spells to ensure that I have magical supplies and tools. You know, and that comes in different forms so that I'm not always spending money. I've done that with books, and I had to actually like go back and undo that because I don't have enough shelves anymore. Like publishers have just been sending me so many books that I'm like, you know, there's no way I'm going to read all these. I don't have the space for it. But I think, you know, a lot of people need to remember if they're magical practitioners, you know, magical practitioners look at the problem and try to see what the magical solution is, as well as the mundane. So I think, you know, just kind of trying to think outside of the box for what the problem is, and is there something magically I can do for that?
Yeah, I think that's lovely. Do a candle spell to get candles, to get more candles. It's like using your wish to wish for more wishes, right? All right, here's a good question. Rita has a question. What is the best, do you do color magic, Matt?
Oh yeah.
What in your opinion is the best candle color to contact a guardian angel, your personal guardians? What color would you use?
Okay. Well, I think that's kind of a complicated question because it depends on what you mean by a guardian angel. So that could be like the higher self. It could probably be more along the line, because I don't work with a guardian angel. I work with a familiar spirit, which is sort of similar, except like they're not as love and light. Like they're, you know, so if there's a breakup, the way that my friend Devin talks about it, you know, your guardian angel's gonna come with, you know, ice cream and movies and be like, do you need to talk? You know, this is for the highest good. This is the best path. Where your familiar spirit's gonna come and they're gonna have like switchblades and Vaseline and be like, you know, let's mess this up. But when it comes to those kind of personal spirits, in my tradition of Sacred Fires, for our familiar spirit, we ask the familiar spirit what color to use. When it comes to angelic work with guardian angels, I've seen white used. I've seen really light blue used. I've seen gray used, but I don't know if that's trying to be silver or something.
I like that. I mean, I tend to think of guardian energy being black energy, that protective quality. And then I think it depends on the kind of what you mean by protection and what you mean by guardian. If what you want is to have someone wrap a cloak of invisibility around you so that your enemies cannot harm you, your enemies cannot find you, then black is really amazing. But if you're calling your guardian angel for like something else, like Matt said, like you may want to use white, which is kind of a universal blank slate that you can use for anything, or blue or silver or some of these other colors. And maybe you want to connect with your guardian angel. I think that's a brilliant idea, Matt, which is to connect with your guardian angel and see, if you do a visualization, what color is their aura, what colors around them, or ask them to show you the color or something like that in meditation. And then you're building a relationship with that guardian too, which is an amazing thing to do. You know, you're having a conversation with them. But I think, you know, it kind of depends on what kind of protection or guardian. When I think of angel energy, I'm thinking of protective energy. That's the place I go, which is a guardian. Like, you want somebody like putting a cloak around you so you no bad stuff can find you. And that is one of my favorite kind of workings to do for protection. Invisibility work is really what we're talking about. But
right, yeah. And in my my practice and my tradition, that would be the familiar spirit. People tend to think of like cats or animals when it comes to familiar spirits, but it's not so much that. It's more like the old witch trial familiar spirit. You know, it's that like you were saying, that kind of protective. And that's why I was saying, like, they come with like, you know, switchblades and Vaseline, and they're like, who are we gonna fuck up? You know, like you know, versus, you know, it'll be better and this is for the highest good. Because it, like, the word angel too is the second loaded word, because that means different things to different people. And you can even look at in the broad term of like angel is just a messenger spirit of some sort.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think the Doreen Virtuification, is that a thing? I just made up that. I just coined that term now.
Whether it's a term or not, it is a thing.
But it's like this idea that we look at spirits in a kind of almost Hallmark way. Fairies, the fairies, angels, and so on. And I think it's kind of almost infantilizing these spirits or diminishing these spirits, in my opinion, again, totally my opinion, where we're kind of like going, oh, they're so cute. Oh, they're so good. But then we're not realizing their power, and we're not meeting them on equal turf in some level. Do you get, I think Matt gets what I'm saying, right?
Oh, totally. So like, if you look at angels up until, you know, kind of like the Victorian era kind of romanticized everything, like fairies and angels and art and stuff. But if you read the actual like source material for angels, like they're terrifying. And there's a reason that they start off with like, fear not, you know, like, don't be afraid of me. There's a reason, because they're not necessarily the most approachable in their appearance and energy. Also, like, oh my God, Doreen Virtue. So I like a couple years ago, I stumbled on a video of hers, and it was like all about like asking, I forgot who it was. I think it was like Metatron or some like really high ranking angel to like help you find your car keys. And it's like, you know, like these are like cosmic forces. Like they don't give a shit about, you know, your everyday finding your car keys. But when it comes to like the idea of like a guardian spirit, that is kind of a universal idea that has been around, you know, different names. I think the Catholicism like influence on that has it as like a guardian angel. But there is this idea that, you know, there is usually a spirit that is looking out for us, even if it is a higher aspect of ourselves that feels different. So in my experience, the higher self often feels like someone else or something else, because we're so detached from it that it doesn't feel like it's us. You know, it's still in that kind of divine state, but it is us.
Yeah, I feel like well, for me, I'm a spiritualist first and foremost. And so I always look at our spirit guides around us as this counsel around us that are helping us, protecting us, and doing all these, they're like a family of support from the spirit realm. So I don't necessarily look at that like cute little angel that's like watching out, or like that image of the angel. I kind of don't balk at that image of the angel that's watching over the children crossing the dangerous bridge. But I think that the angels are in their essence, and fairies, awe-inspiring. They are not cute, which I think is removes the beauty of the mystery and the awe, you know? So the Doreen Virtuification. Which I think, I don't, I don't hate Doreen Virtue. I have my problems with some of her stuff, but I also see, she kind of did open a pathway for people to feel comfortable with cards and things like divination and things like that, although she backed off from it, but so I'm kind of a little bit like this with her. Here is a fascinating question, because Rita kind of had a follow-up question, which I think you are going to just get your teeth into this one. Rita says, is there a price to pay for doing candle magic? Like, do you have some kind of debt? And I imagine a spiritual debt of some kind. That's a good question. And I think Matt's going to love this question.
So my answer is that I'm a little bit more old school in this sense. Like, I believe any type of magic you do, there's a coin to pay. And it's a matter of, is it worth that coin? A lot of times that coin to be paid is the spell or the magic working. It goes to the whole cause and effect. So is there going to be some like horrible backlash where you have bad luck or like a karmic debt? Like, I don't think so, not in most cases. But there is a price to pay for anything with magic, just like anything mundane. Any action that we do, anything that we say to someone, there's a cause and effect. So there is a coin to be paid. I think it's a matter of just, recognizing if you want to pay that coin, but I think it's more about like being clear on your will of what you want your magic to do. Because often, so I go back to The Craft a lot, because that was my movie when I was a little kid that got me all excited about witchcraft. And, Rochelle does a spell on the school bully who is a racist. And her real payback wasn't going bald. It wasn't anything happening to her. It was her watching the girl in the shower crying while her hair was falling out. So it was that kind of watching it actually happen that was her coin to pay. So I think it's, if you're doing a candle magic to better your life, to better other people's life, that coin that you're paying is the fulfillment of that. I believe personally that all the magic that we're doing gets us closer or further from our true will. So I put a lot of emphasis on, meditating on, is this in alignment with my true will? Is it not in alignment with my true will? Does that make sense? Or is that too rambly? Is that
I
too
love
out
that. No,
there?
that totally makes sense to me. I think it's a question that it kind of is a personal gnosis question, because what is your experience? And it depends on the magic you're doing. It really depends on your magic you're doing. Let's be honest. If you're doing a bunch of this is my opinion. If you're doing a bunch of curse work, it's like the people I see that do a bunch of curse work, I don't know if it's a chicken and the egg thing,
Right.
but they're like, their life is tough. Now, maybe their life is tough because they're doing, and that's why they're doing curse work everywhere.
Yes.
But I kind of think it's a feeding something, So it's like, what are you feeding? Like I check in with my guides about spell work. Their spell work, I will not do a curse. Don't ask me to do a curse because I won't do it. I won't do it. Will I do reversing work? Sure, I'll do reversing work, no problem, because it's clean work. Reversing work is like, okay, you're sending something negative, we're going to put it back, which is not, if you're not sending anything, there's no blowback from it. So you have to come up with your own ethical guidelines. And then when you do it, I love to do prosperity work, love work. I love doing I love doing work for opening up opportunities. And as a result, that's kind of how my life goes. And that's the payback for this work that I'm doing, is that I have love in my life. I have opportunities in my life. And my life is amazing because I kind of chose that path. So I think it's kind of something that you have to check in with your own guidance, whether it's your own heart, your own intuition, your own religion, your own spiritual path, or your higher self, right?
Absolutely. And I wrote an article that a while back got a lot of blowback for saying what you said. Just observing people who are super curse happy, who like curse because their feelings were hurt or their ego, you know, like they are continually in situations where they need to curse, you know, so it is like that chicken or egg type thing that you were talking about. Absolutely. But I also, you know, sometimes you do gotta curse and sometimes you do gotta bind, if it is justified. And that is the question that is hard, because sometimes binding someone helps there to be less victims. It causes less harm, you know, and that's, once again, it's all about discernment, and if it's justified, and if you're willing to pay whatever price that may come for that,
And I
which
think here,
sometimes the answer is yes.
yeah, one of my teachers way long time ago said that you cannot hex, or ethically, that her ethics that she passed down, and I really live by this. It's like, if you want to hex or you want to bind, the ethics are whatever you're binding about, you cannot do it. So it's like, if you want to bind a pedophile, you cannot be a pedophile. If you want to bind a rapist, you can't be a rapist. So you have to kind of check in at each moment and say, the binding I'm doing, am I going to bind myself to that repercussions of that? I suppose, I guess that would be what you would say. So I always like to say, well, that's a good guideline. Then you can bind, you can hex Kavanaugh, or you can bind Kavanaugh, or you can bind Trump, or do whatever you want to do on that level, because you're not going to be that doing those things. I'm not going to go build a wall to block immigrants from coming to, you know what I mean? Those kinds of things. Like, what are you binding? What are you working on? So,
or similarly, you know, like I've come across people that are asking advice for like justice spells, you know, like they want justice on this court case or this legal matter or whatever is going on in their life. And I have to really, and they feel like it's an attack, but I have to be like, are you really in the right? Because when you do that justice act, justice will happen. And if you're in the wrong, like it's going to affect you. And that's very similar to what you're saying about like making sure your hands are clean in the work that you're doing.
yeah.
You know, because if you're cursing someone for an action that you're doing, it's very much like you were saying, you know, it's you're affecting yourself. And I do think, going back to my idea of if something is bringing you closer to your true will or further, I feel every magical act we engage in changes us. I totally 100% believe that. So like you were saying about like the type of spells you do, you know, what are you transforming into? What are you transforming your life into? Because any magical act, I truly believe, changes a person and changes a person's life. Um,
And I think there's also a level of interesting that you know, like bringing that back around again. I find that what, like, it is kind of, it isn't threefold law, but it's kind of like what goes around comes around. But I also find that you have to be humble. Like, there's some kinds of spell working that I'm not really great at, and there's some that I'm great at, like reconciliation work. People hate doing reconciliation work. So many root workers and spellcasters, witches, hate doing reconciliation work. I love doing reconciliation work, and I'm damn good at it. I'm good at reconciliation work. However, with the caveat, if you bring that person back into your life and you pick the same fight again, you're going to be back to square one. So something's got to change before you know, to have that person come back and to have something different happen. Like, don't go repeating the same thing. But I think you have to have the humility of realizing there's some kind of work that I just don't do it. It's like the kind of work I don't do because I'm not good at it. I don't like doing it. I don't want to. I ask my guides. They say don't do it. I mean, there's so many no's on some kind of work, and like curses for people, I'm like, no. Breakup spells, very selectively on breakup spells, very selectively. If you are mad that Susie ran off, because we're using Susie today, Susie ran off with somebody else, then, and you want them to break up so that Susie will come back to you, no, that's not going to happen. We need to do some work there. Yeah.
Well,
But yeah, so, but I
it,
don't want to break up with somebody. You know, I want my relationships to last. I don't want to break up. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, and it definitely, I don't believe ethics for magic or spirituality is a one size fits all. It's a very personal case by case thing, like we were talking about. So, like, even earlier in the discussion, I was talking about, this woman who came in and wanted a reading on her son, her adult son. And, like, normally my ethics would be like, no, not at all. But, I did check in and I did make an exception, because my higher guidance was saying, yes, you need to read on this. So I think just like magic, it's a case by case situation where the answer is going to be different for everyone.
Totally. And what's funny is that I am a clairsentient, and I will pop in on anybody and read them and give them, the person that is my client, the information. So if they want to know what's happening over there, I can tell them, okay, this is what they're feeling. This is what they're experiencing. This is what's going on behind the closed doors. I have no problem popping in and emotionally connecting with anybody, because I have checked with my ethics. It's very interesting that you bring that up, because in my book, in my candle magic book, one of the first chapters is about coming up with your own ethical guidelines and asking these questions of yourself. When I connect with my guides or my inner self or my truth, do I feel comfortable doing these things? Or is it like, no. And that's where you have to kind of judge and make it for yourself, because there is no rule. That you just said, there is no one size fits all rule. And so you have to find out what works for you. Some people won't do coercive magic. Some people will do breakups and curses like no big deal. It's not for me to say to them that they can't do it. I can only say for myself, right? That's it. We can only say for ourselves. It's not a religion. Witchcraft is not a religion. Spell working is not a religion. There is no person on high. Guess what? You are empowered, right? That's the beauty of it. That's why we love it, right?
Yeah, and if we look at true will as like our life purpose, our reason that we've incarnated, right? If we go back to Crowley, I mean, like, what is the law of magic of the new aeon? It's do what thou wilt. So, and when he's talking about, it's not do whatever the F you want, it's about like, is this in alignment with your true will? If it is, do it. If it's not, then just love.
Yeah. It's anarchy in its best form, which is that you get to decide for you, and no one is the boss of you, which is the most beautiful thing. All right, so let's get into a couple more questions. We have some more, and I want to get to as many as possible. Here's a question for you, Matt. Can two different people have altars in the same room? What's your opinion on that?
I think it would be a case by case thing. I wouldn't, just because I am so like psychically sensitive, and magically sensitive. Like in this room that I'm in right now, this is my office library, but also my magic room. I have like probably like 6 altars in here, and it's a lot. Like you can feel it when you come in. I think if you have very limited space, I think it's fine. Do what you need to do. But it's also about like, what are those altars dedicated to? Like, what is the purpose of them? So if you mean like an altar as in like a hoodoo or folk magic workspace, like I think that's totally fine. But if it's like an area where you're calling or dedicating or honoring certain spirits, you want to make sure that those spirits get along. You want to make sure that, there's a lot of factors involved in that. Because, yeah, I mean, it depends on what the people are practicing and what the purpose of that space is.
In other words, don't have your Hephaestus and Aries altar in the same room.
Yeah. And
there's a nerdy witch joke for you right there.
Right.
Like you want to have, that's exactly what I was thinking, which is you want to, if you're doing altars to deities, make sure the deities are okay with it, like check in with them and learn a little bit about the history and are they compatible? Right. And I think also if you're doing personal altars, let's say you're doing like that personal altar, how intimate are the two of you? Would I do an altar with a stranger that I didn't know what they were doing on their altar? Probably not. But if it's my lover, my family member who I really know intimately, sure. You know, we share. It's like, who would you invite into the room? Would you be comfortable in the person with the room? You know, that's the kind of thing I think of. Yeah.
And for me too, I mean, it's very much about like personal will. So this is a space where you are enacting your personal will. So who are you allowing into it? Like, I don't even talk about like magical things that I'm manifesting with people that I know will affect it, even with their negative thoughts or whatever. People close in my life, when I'm manifesting something for the both of us, I don't even tell them about it because I don't want them to affect and influence that. So I think that's something else to kind of keep in mind, is like, what energies is that person bringing into the environment that may affect your working that you're doing.
Yeah. So it's kind of like your mileage may vary, right, on this question. And I think you kind of look at what kind of altar, like you were saying. If it's just a working altar where you're doing your thing, sure, why not? I have a really controversial question. Do you want a controversial question?
Okay.
This is from Mysterious iPhone. So very
Okay.
mysterious. Has a spell ever failed that you did for a client? I love this question. I can't wait to answer it.
Oh, am I answering?
Oh, well, you want me to answer? You want me to go first?
So I don't actually do spell work for clients.
Oh.
At least now. Yeah. The closest I will do is I will coach them in how to do their own spell. And this is something that I picked up from Christopher Penczak, you know, which he will do a spell consultation. He will even guide you through you doing it. But for me, it's just not my path at the moment, especially since I rather teach people than do, and I rather them feel more empowered by doing it themselves and seeing it work. That being said, going back to the works question, in my own personal spells, I've had spells that have failed, absolutely.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. It's like, here's the analogy I say. And I do spell work for clients. I also teach spell work to clients all over the place. I do magical coaching. I will sit down with you in a session just like Matt will. But here's the thing that I will say to you. Magic is like medicine. Do you ever go into a doctor and the doctor says, I 100% guarantee that if you take this pill, you will be 100% cured? Have you ever heard that come out of the mouth of a doctor? No, never. Doctors are too afraid of malpractice. They're never going to put their license on the line saying something like that. They say, here, take this medicine, and you know, you should feel this situation. You take this antibiotic for 7 days. You should feel better, but take it the whole 7 days. If it doesn't work for you, come back and see me and we'll try something else. Right? And I get that correlation. People understand that. People understand the process of going to the doctor. And if you can see that analogy of how it's very much like going to a magical worker, we as a magical worker, someone will say, hey, do this spell for me. And I'm like, you should have a consultation to find out if that's the right spell. First of all, just like you would go to a doctor to find out if that's the right medicine.
Right.
You have something to say about that, right?
Oh, I absolutely agree. And it's funny that you brought up the doctor thing, because I use a kind of similar example, but I do it with readings. So when I'm teaching people to read and be confident, I usually compare psychic readings or tarot readings or whatever divination with legal advice. Lawyers are sometimes wrong, you know, but they've put in the time for the training, they've put in the time for their expertise and to give their opinion of where to guide you. There is nothing in this world that is 100%.
There's no destiny, right?
Yeah.
The idea of destiny I see as like the strong stream toward an outcome. And you can say, wow, it's really looking like it's heading in that direction. And that is what we would call a destiny, but you have free will. At every moment, you have free will. In every situation, Matt could jump up on top of the table and start doing a hoochie coochie dance right now. Is it likely? No, it's probably the destiny is he's going to sit there and speak so beautifully and knowledgeably about stuff. But the free will exists that he could jump up on the table, and that reality is possible for us. Will you do a dance for us, Matt?
Oh, no, I don't need to do a dance.
Dang it. I thought maybe I could get you to do a dance. But it's that analogy with the magic too. Like in magic, we look at the situation, and some situations are like a patient that's on their last leg. Some situations are like that. And you can throw a lot of magic at it. You can try, just like if you had a patient on their last leg, you wouldn't go, oh, well, you'd say, okay, well, this is what we can offer. Let's give it a try and see what result we get. But the person who is advising you may see through their reading or through whatever that there isn't a lot of hope for a situation. But it's worth giving a try too. And if you really are bound and determined, you can give it a try. There's other situations where it's already moving in that direction and you're just pushing it along. Those are the easiest of all. And then there's situations that are kind of on the fence where it's like, it could tip either one way or the other. And we want to tip it over in our direction. And those are the ones that I think are the most dramatic because you're really not sure that it's going to happen. The ones that are already moving along, you're like, did the magic help or not? I don't know. But the ones where like things are a little dicey, you can see that. So have you had spells fail? All the time? Because a client will say things like, you know, Susie hasn't called me in 5 years. I've changed my phone number and I'm not on social media and she's not on social media, but I want her to reach out and contact me. Can we do a talk to me spell? That doesn't look very likely without even doing a reading. You can say, it doesn't look very likely. Can we do it? Sure, we can try. If you really, really want to try, we can do it, or I can advise you on how to do it, you know, but when we're looking at something that doesn't look very likely, you know, you're kind of like giving the patient on their last leg some kind of hope, some kind of medicine, not giving them hope, false hope, but just saying, okay, you want to feel the sense that I tried everything to get that result, you know?
And that's something I want to touch on real quick. So one of the reasons I like doing consultation and trying to guide someone to do their own magic versus doing it for them is I want to know how badly they want it. You know, because a lot of people like don't want to do the work, you know, so I check in what's the mundane work that you've done for the situation, you know, like a lot of people want other people to fix their problems instead of doing it for themselves. When it comes to manifestation itself, something that my book is very focused on is getting in touch with these different aspects of yourself. So these different auric bodies, so like astral, mental, etheric, you know, divine, psychic, all this stuff. And when we send off magic, a lot of times when it fails, it's because one of those layers are off somehow. So, you know, even if you've sent off the spell, if your emotional energy starts touching it again with like doubt, if your mind starts touching it with doubt, you're pulling it from the what I call the divine level, which is where it's supposed to start manifesting and come back down. And so you're pulling it back to yourself and you're weakening it with constant doubt. And a lot of times when I find my spells fail, it's because I'm too close to them, because I'm obsessing over them, because I'm, you know, like I mentally like am stressing and worrying and like, how come this isn't working? How come this isn't working? Instead of just letting that shit go and do its thing, which is like such a huge part of magic, you know?
Yeah.
If you've done the things, like let it go. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I find that attitude tends to make things happen.
Yeah, you're easy about it. And that's a huge thing. Like I have clients where I've had to like give them a little stern talking to because I'm like, we do a candle spell and then like, it's not working. It's not working. It's not working. I'm like, oh boy, we're going to have a problem here. If I'm doing magic on a candle spell for you and you're putting out the energy that it's not working, we're at cross purposes here, you know? And so it is about that. Put it out there, let it go, let the magic do its thing, let spirit do its thing, and just I say the perfect outcome and perfect timing, and then you relax about it, right? There's a really amazing question that I want to get to because it's so in your wheelhouse and it's so good, and then we're going to wrap it up. But first, Honoreo says, Sybil Leek said, evil allowed to exist harms everyone. And I always love that quote. I think that's amazing.
I love Sybil Leek.
She was my girl when I was in junior high. We didn't have Charmed when I was in junior high. We barely had television back when I was in junior high. So I had Sybil Leek, though, in my junior high school library. Amanda wants to know, I'm new to magic, or actually I deliberately turned it off around the age of 7. Can you give any perspectives on how often to check in with your guides? I've been doing Madame Pamita spirit guide meditations daily for a week, and I've also added a familiar meditation as well. I'm also in an intense period of transition, shift, whatevs. Thank you both. So what would you say about checking in with, doing that like psychic work or doing that spirit work, like a meditation and so on?
Okay, well, I don't want to step on toes because she mentioned she's doing your thing, so I was going to give it to you.
Don't step on a toe because I'm not the only way to get there, and I think she needs to know all the paths to getting there. So go for it.
So, I mean, I think honestly, you should be checking in with your guides regularly. I think we should be checking in with ourselves regularly. I think, with magic and psychic stuff, a lot of it starts really formal. And then as we kind of build those links, those pathways, it just becomes natural. That's another big part of my book. Like a lot of getting into the psychic state, it's a lot of work and a lot of exercises. But as you keep doing it, as you keep programming yourself, you can just turn it on and turn it off. And I think that working with spirits is a very, very similar manner. So when I started doing mediumship and stuff, I would do these really elaborate meditations because that's what I needed to build those connections. Now I don't. I just sit back, I look at their aura, and I see who wants to come in, who wants to chat, because I've built those muscles. So in my opinion, when you're asking how often should you check in with a guide, I think when you need guidance, right? I mean, that's why they're a guide. But I like to, for a familiar spirit, I like to check in more regularly, more frequently, because that's kind of, I see the familiar spirit as your sidekick. So this is your magical hand on the other side. So I always want to make sure everything's cool. What are you perceiving? Things of that nature. But your mileage may vary.
Yeah, I think that is perfect advice. However you view them, whatever your name for it, your guide council, your guides, your angels, your fairies, your familiars, whatever your spirits, or whatever, you build a relationship with them. So the more often you hang out with somebody, and especially when you're hanging out with somebody new, the more often you check in with them, the stronger and faster you build that relationship. If you meet a new friend and you're hanging out every day or you're calling them every day, doesn't that friendship go very fast, very deep, And I think that that's the case with your guides. I exactly what Matt said for me. I pop in and out and talk to my guides all dang day long because it's okay, all right, okay. It's a constant thing. It's in the background. So, I think the more that you consciously start to build up that relationship, the more and faster and sooner you'll be able to pop in and out. It's just like with Matt's book, the exercises that you can do to build up your psychic awareness, the faster you're going to get into your intuition, recognize that voice, be able to get that information out there. The more you do it, the faster it comes. The more you practice piano, the faster you're going to be a great musician, right? Can you show them your book one more time so they can order it on their favorite independent bookseller or the other places that they can order it? They can pre-order it. Psychic Witch, I have to say one last thing. I want you to hold it up, and I'm going to talk while you're holding it up. Yeah. But that book is such a fabulous, phenomenal book for understanding your intuition. And I get this question all the time. How can I develop my intuition? How can I learn to be, I'm a clairaudient, but I want to be clairvoyant. How can I develop that? What can I do to start working with spirit in the spirit realm? I mean, you get into all of it in this book, and it is a beautiful journey that you can, and then I really encourage people to start from the beginning, even if you have experience. But like I said, the experienced ones, your mind is going to be blown. by the stuff that he has in the more latter chapters, and how you may have even imagined this beautiful exercise that you can do, or this way that you can use your abilities. So I think this book is one of those very few books that meets you where you are, and it's not just a beginner book, which so many books out there are just beginner books, which are good, you know, but this one really, really meets you and goes into quite advanced kind of work. So it's really a book for everyone. I love it. I love it. So you can find this online, and I have mine pre-ordered. I pre-ordered one, even though I have I've already read it, but I want it in my collection. Oh, and by the way, speaking of your book situation, Matt, before we go, I was saying, I feel like being the dramatic Cancer that I am, I feel like it's Sophie's choice. I have to choose which books I'm going to get rid of, because I'm running out of shelf space and I have books stacked up everywhere. And what am I going to do? And a wonderful Morgan Daimler, you know Morgan Daimler, right? Morgan Daimler said, get more bookshelves.
Right.
Problem solved. Morgan. So anyway, thank you so much, Matt. You are a delight, and you are a treasure to me. I love every time we get together. Am I going to see you at PantheaCon?
Maybe.
You don't know yet?
I'm not 100% yet. So.
Well, maybe I can convince you to come to PantheaCon by telling you that I am co-producing a tarot-themed disco night. Would that make you come to PantheaCon?
I mean, that sounds pretty fun.
It's tempting, isn't it now?
Yeah, I mean, I want to go. There's just a lot of factors in play at the moment. My life's in a lot of transition. So
I'm going to do a spell against your will.
Okay.
I'm going to subvert your will and make you come to PantheaCon just so I can see you.
Let's do it. Yeah.
I love you so much, Matt. Thank you so much for joining us. You are a delight. I just love you so, so much. I hope I see you sometime soon and hang out in some Llewellyn thing somewhere.
Yeah.
Paganicon, something like that. Yeah, my book is going to be out in October. How magical. It's going to be out in October. So we are book label mates, book publisher mates. We get to hang out in the booth together at something. I'm willing that too. I'm going to be doing all kinds of spell work on you, making you come more into my sphere. But thank you again for joining me here. We'll do it again sometime.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
let's totally. I love you. Are you going to Temple Fest this year?
There's some rumors that I'm going to Temple Fest. Might be presenting. It was bantered about. It isn't official yet, so I will let you know if it ever gets to be an official thing. But I've had such an amazing time. East Coast witches are awesome. I love my East Coast witches. You guys are awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you, Spell Squad, for being here. You guys are amazing. And you know, I love you. And I love coming into our clubhouse. Your questions are always amazing. Next week, I got to tell you I don't even know who our guest is going to be next week. That's how disorganized I am. Are you surprised? Probably not. Next week, our guest is going to be Teresa Reed, the Tarot Lady. I love this. It's a surprise for me. But Teresa Reed, the Tarot Lady, is going to be. She's amazing. She's a tarot expert. So have all your questions about divination and tarot, and she'll be able to answer those. Looking forward to seeing you next week. Happy holidays, everyone. I'll see you one more time before Christmas. And happy Hanukkah. If you celebrate Hanukkah, happy solstice. That will be around that time. So we'll see you then. Thanks again, Matt. And have a stay warm, and have a beautiful holiday.
You as well.
Bye.
Bye.